talk about goal getting journaling. I've been journaling for almost 50 years now, and yes, it feels weird to say that. Like, how is that even a thing? Well, here's how it's a thing. I've been journaling since I was a kid, and I'm pretty sure that I've tried every kind of journaling that I've ever heard about. It doesn't mean that this is an exhaustive list of like all the types of journaling that I've ever done and what I don't do anymore, but it is. The point of this video is that I want to help you make the most of your journal. The truth of it is that there are lots of kinds of journaling that aren't actually taking you to your goal. They feel good, or they sound good, or somebody told you, oh yes, here is how you journal, like kind of in general. But some kinds of journaling are actually helping you rewire your brain for success, and some kinds of journaling are keeping you stuck. So that's why there are 4 things that I don't do in my journal anymore that I want to share with you today, so that you can take a look at what you are doing, not for the purpose of like, oh my gosh, I'm making mistakes and I need to like, throw out the baby with the bathwater and start all over from scratch, but more like there are nuances and tweaks and subtle things that you can do to make your journaling more effective for getting your goal. So let's talk about the first kind of journaling that I used to do way back in the day. I mean, literally when I was a kid, except that it wasn't just when I was a kid. I got my first diary and I started writing in my diary as one does. Dear diary, here's what I did today. Jamie and I talked about boys. I mean, what else do you write about when you're like 9 years old, right? But here's the thing. I actually journaled like that well into my 30s and would have continued to journal like that if I was getting anywhere with it. I actually really struggled to journal like that because I didn't think my life was very interesting, and I could see day after day after day that I wasn't actually getting where I wanted to go. I had these lofty goals and I was recounting my day, and those 2 things did not seem to meet. And maybe that's what it feels like for you, that you're recounting your day, you're writing things down, you're holding yourself accountable if that's how you're thinking about it. You're writing in your journal, but it's a little bit robotic. It's a little bit of just recapping. And here is the subtle tweak that you can make, the thing that I don't do anymore. I don't just write a recap. What I actually do is I think about the things that I did during my day that I personally was actually responsible for. Because hear me out. Sometimes what I used to write was stuff like, oh, the weather was nice, or somebody at work said something very nice to me, or, when I went to the grocery store, the lines were very short, which is always a nice thing, right? But none of that was really under my agency. None of that was about me creating something in the world. And here's the thing about getting your goal. You are creating a thing in the world. So you want to start noticing the places that you're already doing that. This is how we rewire your brain, my friend. When you recap your day, it's important that you recap the things that you personally had complete agency over, which is, by the way, your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. Unfortunately, you are not in charge of the weather. If I was, oh my gosh, if I was, it would be beautiful every single day. And, occasionally rain, but only overnight, and almost never cold. Okay, none of that has anything to do with journaling, but here's the thing. The things that you personally have agency over, those are the things that you want to be writing down in your journal. And not just from a place of like, I did this. But here's the subtle tweak here, because this is another kind of journaling that you might be doing. Okay, you might be just like dear diarying, or you might be recounting your day with an eye towards gratitude journaling. This was something that I tried, 1991. Isn't that when Oprah started talking about gratitude journaling? Of course I tried that, of course. And it didn't exactly get me very far. Here's why. I was doing the same sort of thing. I was talking about things that happened to me instead of the things that I had agency over and the things that I felt. I tried so hard to gratitude journal about things that I didn't really feel gratitude about. I tried so hard to convince myself inside my journal that this was a good thing and that I felt good about it. And the truth of it was, I didn't. I was trying so hard to be grateful that what I actually felt was kind of guilty, kind of obligated, kind of under the burden of, and frankly, sometimes even resentful of the things that I had that I wasn't really in charge of. These two subtle shifts actually really work together. Inside my journaling framework, the one that I have a link for in the description box below, I talk about 3 different types of journaling that actually work synergistically together to rewire your brain for success. And these 2 types of things where you are recounting your day are something that I call success journaling. Now, I have a free masterclass that you can watch that actually explains all about it in great detail. It takes about 20 minutes to watch the class. And it really tells you like why it works, how it works, and what to do. What I want to offer you here is that the subtle tweaks that you can make to the kind of journaling that you're doing are things like taking agency over what you have already done and making sure that the feeling you feel is not necessarily gratitude, but some version of something good. Because if you are simply recounting your day and talking about things that you wish you were grateful for, but actually feel kind of not so grateful for, what you're doing is not rewiring your brain. You are simply reinforcing that things happen to you and sometimes those things suck. Don't do that in your journal. I mean, here, I say don't do that in your journal. I did that for literal years in my journal, and that's why I don't do it anymore. Now, something else that I also did, starting in about my 30s, I used to just vent journal. And in fact, I'm thinking about this. I actually started doing that somewhere around my 20s. It wasn't just about recounting my day. It was about trying to find patterns and see who I really was. By that point, I was already pretty well into the self-help world. I was starting to read self-help books. I started to understand a little bit about mindset stuff, not a lot, but a little bit. So I was trying to be self-aware. I was trying to look at myself and say, okay, well, here's what I'm doing and here's what this all means. And you can tell maybe from my slightly sarcastic tone that wasn't doing me a lot of good. That, in fact, was definitely keeping me stuck in thinking that things happened to me and that I had these patterns of self-sabotage. All I was doing in my journal was basically telling myself this story about who I was in the world, and most of my stories were some version of I can't have what I want. Now, this is a not so subtle tweak and nuance to the work that's really going to take your journaling to a whole nother level. Yes, you can start off with the venting, the free form journaling. You can journal for pages and take a moment to actually see what you are writing as a story. This is something I call metacognitive journaling. Again, I tell you all about it in the masterclass, what it is, how it works, and what it does for you. But I will tell you here that what it does for you is it takes you up and out of your stories instead of reinforcing them. Remember, our goal here is our actual goal, but our goal here with our journal is to rewire your brain, not continually keep going down the same neural pathways, telling yourself that you are the problem, you are self-sabotaging, you are, a victim of your circumstances. In order to rewire your brain, it's going to help you to take that moment to come up and out of your stories. This will make such a huge difference. And bonus points, if you'd like to actually, truly release yourself from those old stories, there's a very simple way to do so, and it's by feeling the emotion that story creates. My friend, this is the real key to rewiring your brain, is feeling your feelings. Which brings me to the last thing that I don't do in my journaling anymore. I don't just make lists. A couple of years ago, which I don't even remember how long ago it was, but when bullet journaling like first came out, I was so excited about this. At the time, I was still a little bit in the kind of reinforcing my old stories, kind of just talking about my day, kind of just keeping myself stuck journaling. And I thought for sure, oh, bullet journaling, this will be the thing that changes everything. Well, it turns out it was the thing that was exactly the same as what I was doing. I was making to-do lists. I was making grocery lists. I was making things that I want lists. I am a list-making kind of girl right up until I realized that I wasn't actually moving closer to my goals by simply making a list. Because here's what was going on. I would make this huge list inside my bullet journal of like everything I wanted and how I was going to get it and when I was going to get there. And then day by day by day, I was watching myself not check any of those boxes that I made with the little bullets. I made these perfect little squares, but I wasn't filling them in. I wasn't checking those boxes. Here is the subtle thing that you can do instead of just making lists. Use your imagination to actually picture yourself doing the thing. This is the work, my friend, of rewiring your brain. When you make a list, you're only using your brain. But when you're using your imagination to see that list in your mind come to life, it brings in your body, your feelings. Using your imagination brings your brain and your body together to help you make a list that you're actually going to do. Now, inside my Daily 3 journaling framework, I call this future self journaling, where it's not just an intellectual exercise to write things down that you like want to do or think that you have to do, but to actually use your imagination and find the things that you're going to do. My friend, when you rewire your brain for success, it only takes these subtle tweaks inside your journaling habits to change everything. And I promise you, when you do, instead of journaling and wasting your time, you will get your goal.